Give me goop.
Nope! Welcome back to the Overtly Critical Film Show. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Corwin.
And this is episode 3, and we do have a content warning for this one, because I know my mom watches this.
Yeah, sorry, any family that watches this one. This was a raunchy movie, and we are not going to shy away from the topics involved. So, yeah, slap that 18-plus warning label on the content for this episode.
And we're here for episode 3, and today we're talking about 4 Rooms from 1995, directed by
4 people this time.
Yeah.
4 Rooms, 4 directors.
Allison Anders, Alexandre Rockwell, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino. It is the first movie that we've done to feature animation of some kind, which is kind of cool. And it is also our first female director.
There we go.
So we are diverse.
Diversity,
Confirmed.
inclusivity, there we go. Social justice, let's go.
On New Year's Eve, bellhop Sam, Mark Lawrence, of the Hotel Monsignor, briefs his replacement, Ted, played by Tim Roth. The film's animated opening credits, inspired by cartoons of the Pink Panther show, feature the scat song Vertigogo by Combustible Edison. The first room is the honeymoon suite. This section is called the missing ingredient. This is written and directed by Allison Anders. Ted assists a group of unusual women with their luggage, which he brings to the honeymoon suite. He learns they are a coven of witches attempting to reverse a spell cast on their goddess Diana. The ritual requires them to each place an ingredient into a large cauldron. However, one has still yet to retrieve her ingredient, semen, with 1 hour left. She seduces Ted and they have sex in the cauldron. He leaves and they have complete the ritual, and Diana now emerges from the cauldron. After Ted's service in the honeymoon suite, a party guest from another room calls the front desk for some ice. He is unsure which floor he is on, but eventually directs Ted to room 404.
Room 404, The Wrong Man, written and directed by Alexandre Rockwell. At room 404, Ted finds himself in a fantasy hostage situation. Siegfried manically accuses Ted, whom he calls Theodore, of having slept with his wife Angela. Ted is forced at gunpoint to participate in the scenario, uncertain what is real. He becomes stuck in the bathroom window as a party guest appears in the window above, uttering the word ice and vomiting. Ted escapes just as another guest arrives, looking for room 404, and is greeted by Siegfried in the same manner.
Room 309, The Misbehavers, written and directed by Robert Rodriguez. A husband and his wife leave for a New Year's Eve party, tipping Ted $500 to keep an eye on their children, Sarah and Juancho. Ted instructs the children to stay in their room. When he leaves, they vandalize the room, exploding a bottle of champagne. They call Ted for toothbrushes, and he tries unsuccessfully to put them to bed. He leaves, but is summoned back to find the room in further chaos. A painting has been turned into a dartboard with lipstick and a syringe. Juancho has a cigarette. Sarah has a bottle of liquor. The television is set to an adult channel, and the children have found a dead prostitute in the box spring. Sarah stabs Ted in the leg with the syringe when he repeatedly uses the word whore to refer to the dead woman, and Juancho accidentally sets the room on fire with the cigarette. Their father returns, carrying his passed-out wife, and asks Ted, did they misbehave? Unsettled, Ted calls his boss, Betty, to quit. After a conversation with Margaret, he gets Betty on the phone and tries to quit, but receives a call from the hotel penthouse. Betty convinces him to stay and tend to the guests, who are the most important to the hotel.
Penthouse, The Man from Hollywood. Written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, adapted from Man from the South by Roald Dahl. The penthouse is occupied by famous director Chester Rush and his friends, including Angela. They request a block of wood, a donut, a ball of twine, 3 nails, a club sandwich, a bucket of ice, and a hatchet as sharp as the devil himself. Ted is invited to join their challenge. Chester's friend Norman has bet that he can light his Zippo cigarette lighter 10 times in a row. If Norman succeeds, he will win Chester's car, but if he fails, his pinky will be cut off. Ted, asked to wield the hatchet, should Norman fail, tries to leave, but Chester offers $100 to hear them out and another $900 to perform the assigned role. Norman's lighter fails on the first try, and Ted immediately chops off his pinky, sweeps up the money, and leaves the penthouse with an energetic step. As the credits roll, Chester and company frantically prepare to take a screaming Norman to the hospital.
Before we get into the first room of the movie, the honeymoon suite, I wanted to acknowledge the animated intro because it technically is a unique thing about the movie. And though there is some animation in the witch scene, it's like
it's more effects than animation, but it's very cartoony the way it's done.
Yeah, but the opening sequence, the animated sequence, I think it was well done animated wise. It looked nice.
Yeah, I love the style. It is it's done very much in that style of Pink Panther, which is a cartoon I grew up with and I love. It's very kind of surreal. It's very funny. I love the bit where like the hat is like slipping around on his head. And it sets the tone for the film.
And the movie really is a live-action cartoon, especially the main character, Ted, who I guess we could also talk a little bit about Ted before we get into these segments, because the movie, the idea of the movie, it's basically 4 movies that all have the same character, because every room is kind of its own little short film. The old kind of bellhop bringing Ted into his first day. He gives him some very good advice, two things that he ignores right away.
Keep your dick in your pants. Sorry, Mom, for that one. Don't get involved in marital arguments. And the third one, I don't remember.
I think you only
did
2.
Says. That's the plot for the first two rooms.
Yeah.
I gotta say one thing before we get more into this. And you disagree with me on this, but I feel very mixed about Tim Roth, his performance in this, because he's a good actor. I've seen him in some other stuff. He does a really memorable performance. I'll give him that. It is memorable, but just especially in the first, it's mostly the first one, but also the second one. It's really both, the first 2 vignettes. I cannot stand how twitchy he is and animated he is. It feels odd, with the exception of the last one, which is my favorite performance he gives in the movie. He's so animated and so twitchy and just very overdramatic. It rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I will say it's kind of part of his character development where he starts off as this like nervous guy, and by the end of the night he's been kind of like hardened in the course of like a New Year's night. The only complaint I have was when it got to the point where it was hard to understand what was happening.
Yeah, and
especially in the witch scene though. Yeah, so this one was weird. It was a bunch of witches.
Yeah,
and you at one point had said you might have taken slight offense.
I come from a very pagan background. I was raised somewhat pagan, got a lot of close friends who are, and on one hand I could take slight offense to their portrayal of it, but on the other hand I know some practicing pagans who are kind of like that, and I gotta say it's my least favorite part of the movie, because for the rest of the skits, that's just, there's no magic in any of them, no even chance of there being magic. They are totally realistic situations, over the top but realistic, like I had said. And it felt completely out of place.
There were really good sets. That the room they were in was a really nice set. It was very cartoony. It was very pretty. I could say that for the other scenes, but they weren't as elaborate. They're just kind of hotel rooms. But this one was pretty fun. It was a pretty fun set. The costume design was pretty well. They didn't really wear anything. There was a lot of tits, so I guess there wasn't much costume.
She's got duct tape pasties.
She did. So there was 2 girls that were topless. One of them is one that seduces Ted, and then this girl with a pussy shirt on. She takes off her shirt. She's just got tape over her boobs. There was 2 transitions specifically that in one of these scenes, there's a transition where Tim Roth first finds out what's going on, and there's a question mark that becomes the transition, because it's oh, he doesn't know what's going on. It's just a cute little editing thing. And then they also do it with a heart after him and that girl that hypnotizes them, they fuck.
You were talking about the set and with the transitions, and also it's got these cartoony effects, these I don't know if they're Tweety birds. I thought they looked like UFOs to me, going around his head, where he's dazed and love struck, and the glowy eye beams. I wasn't a huge fan of it, and I thought the sets just looked pretty cartoony to me, but that was the point. My favorite little editing in not the entire movie, but certainly in this vignette. They used a jump cut near the start where was it Madonna's character or was it one of the other witches? She was checking in, and she rings the bell, and that cuts to a slightly wider shot at the same angle where we see Tim is on a pinball machine, and it's just a great cut on the sound, and it's a jump cut used well. And I just saw that and I was like, oh yes, that was great,
because I didn't even notice it, so that's how you know it was kind of good. She was you motherfucker. She was talking about, who was it? It was a girl that was seducing Ted. She was giving the exposition about this Diana goddess they were trying to revive, and she's like, oh, she's a virgin or whatever. And then he shows a picture of Diana and some other woman in like really, really skimpy lingerie.
Yeah, and it's like a picture and it's moving.
Yes, so the picture, she holds up a picture, but then it turns into a video, a moving image, and I thought that was cute editing. And this is the one that written by the woman. And it's basically a female-led scene, and I feel like Ted in the scene kind of acted like an anime guy. He was like he was very uncomfortable with women, and he saw boobs, and he was like, he did fuck. He did score.
He did. This is the opening one of the movie, and I just was very much like, I'm looking at Ryan as we're watching this. I'm thinking, I don't know about this, man.
I actually turned to him and I said, I'm sorry. I was like, we're gonna have to do a video.
We thought it was gonna be awful, this first one, and it's definitely, I think it's both of our least favorite segment.
I think this is probably my least.
I think this is my least favorite, just because overall I don't like the visual design of it, and it's a little bit. The story is funny. It's very funny, but it feels out of place with the rest of them.
It's one of the most explicit uses of semen in a movie plot I've ever seen.
Yeah. So with the exception of Silence of the Lambs, and they don't show it. You never see it, but it's in the explicitly said.
The girl comes out.
Oh my God, with Madonna.
Yeah.
She's out there. If he doesn't get his goop out soon, I'm going to go in and get it myself.
The Room 404, The Wrong Man. This is one directed by Alexandre Rockwell.
I had no idea what was happening. Like,
no.
Let's
lay in the context. Tim Roth, he gets asked to bring ice to this party, but they give him the wrong room number, so he goes to 404. But is it really 404?
And immediately has a gun shoved in his face.
Yeah, but also there's a screenshot you're going to see, and it's going to show 40, and then somebody pulled off the last letters. Maybe they're tricking people. But he gets in.
I didn't think about that, but that's true.
Right. But it's this really moody red lighting. There's like one little light in this, and the guy who we later learn is Siegfried is sitting down, and he says this line of dialogue, something like, it doesn't matter why you're here, what matters is you're here. And he's got a gun pointed at him, and
big freaking dirty, hairy-looking ass revolver.
That kind of lighting.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, he was accusing Ted of having sex with his wife, maybe?
At first, like, this is some kind of illegal hostage situation. And you're like, is this some kind of BDSM thing?
You find out at the end when he leaves and someone else is looking for the party, and he goes into that room, what you hear is Siegfried says the same exact thing, so you know the wife and Siegfried are doing some kind of weird role play thing.
And at the in the last vignette, we see the wife again, and we get it's contextualized that she's fine with what's going on. This is some kind of role play thing they're doing. And again, content warning.
And in the Misbehavers, the little girl calls their room, and Siegfried answers, and it's very weird. But yeah, there's also a really, really funny scene. Again, now that when you know it's all acting, it's really weird. Like the whole thing in the movie, it's acting, because like she then makes up. She's like, "Oh yeah, he definitely did have sex with me," and then she's talking about Ted's massive cock, and goes on to.
Oh my God, the longest freaking list of euphemisms for a dick. I was in stitches.
Dagger, dong.
I've never heard some of these.
Third leg.
It's so funny. This one, it's got great bits. He's got this bit where he's trying to get out a window, and he looks down. And he's like, "Oh right, I'm on the 4th floor," and he looks up and he sees. He doesn't recognize him, but we recognize that the guy on the phone from the party is looking down. And first we're like, "Is he dead?" And I'm like, "He's gonna vomit on him," and he says, "Ice" or something, and he just vomits, and Ted gets through. And I love that shot where it's framed. It's divided right down the middle, and it's like half's in the room, half's not. It's very funny, and it gives us like a wider view of that situation. Right. It's a great way to break there's also general shot rules.
There's also a great, really funny bit where there's there's a wide shot of the whole hotel, and there's a little arrow pointing to Ted in the 4th floor window, and it just says Ted with an arrow, and we thought that was funny.
It's a really funny one.
Siegfried swallows drugs, which might be fake because he fakes a heart attack at some point.
Yeah, because like sugar pills or something, maybe.
Basically, Ted ends up standing up for himself and is like, "Stop calling me Theodore," and then like Siegfried's impressed and he hugs him, but then he kisses him, and then he's like, maybe he wants to fuck him. I don't know what's going on. There was some funny Dutch angles thrown in. There was some interesting look to it.
It's probably the most visually distinct of all of them. Maybe the fourth one is a little more distinct, but that's because it's like one shot. But at the time, I was very off-put by it because, especially after the first one, which is my least favorite, I'm like, is this just what the movie's gonna be? And I didn't like Tim Roth's how crazy he was in this, especially in this one.
I will say the only probably important part about the second one, not only that introduces the wife that'll come back later, it's actually probably character development for Tim Roth's character for Ted, because he kind of he seems like he told a story about how he was bullied his whole life being called Theodore, and he stands up for himself, and after that point he kind of just he gets a lot tougher.
And I think that's a good way to transition into the third one.
Yeah.
The role of Ted was originally written with Steve Buscemi in mind. The film was originally to be titled 5 Rooms, with Richard Linklater contributing to a segment. However, he withdrew before production began. Robert Rodriguez and Antonio Banderas shot their segment 1 week after wrapping up the film of Desperado. Before the Misbehaviors turn to the porno channel, they are watching the short film Bedhead from 1991, also written and directed by Robert Rodriguez. In the final segment from The Man from Hollywood, which lasts 21 minutes, the word fuck, or a variant of it, is to be said 193 times. In the fourth room, the Alfred Hitchcock Presents 1955 episode they call The Man from Rio, or Reno, is actually called Man from the South. The 1 minute Chester asks Ted to sit on the stool and listen to his proposal actually lasts 1 minute and 28 seconds of screen time. The video game being played by Betty and her friends is Rambo 3 from 1989 for the Sega Genesis. However, some scenes show her playing Rambo for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The original idea for the film came from Alexandre Rockwell.
Number 309, The Misbehaviors. This is written and directed by Robert Rodriguez. We thought it was Tarantino for a number of different reasons. The first one you actually pointed out was the TV, because there was cartoons playing.
But this is actually, in a lot of ways, Robert Rodriguez kind of making fun of Tarantino, who I gather that they are very good friends.
They've collaborated before, Dusk Till Dawn.
But the big giveaway that this is Robert Rodriguez, the most obvious one is that it co-stars Antonio Banderas, one of my favorite actors, but also just the way this is edited and the fast-paced humor and how everything builds very fast. That is like, in a lot of Robert Rodriguez films, they're edited like that. He's very good at building comedy like that and action. But there's also this whole thing with the feet that is definitely making fun of Tarantino, if you want to get into that.
The brother and sister are, because they get dressed up by their parents to go to a New Year's Eve party, and the parents just go without them. So they're sitting there, and they
very aggressively combing their hair.
It's kind of funny, actually.
It is. This is the funniest one to me.
And then they take their shoes off, and then they keep like accusing the other one of having stinky feet and like that.
We were like, this is just him being weird, until it builds to the reveal that there is a dead prostitute, or as Ted would like to say, a dead whore, in the bed.
These two parents are going to go out with their kids, and I think last second they decide, like, do you want to have fun tonight? And she's like, yes. And then they just decide to go out without the kids. And then the kids are there, but Ted comes in, and they're like...
He's called up.
He's called, true. And then the dad's like, we're going to offer you $500 to watch over the kids. No, we're going to do $300. And he's like, you said $500. Then
Ted stands up for himself here.
But then they have this tough guy thing. But then he lets Ted win, and they say $500. The only stipulation, his kids cannot misbehave and go to bed before midnight. Mm-hmm. It's New Year's Eve, by the way. This is the New Year's Eve movie. That's a thing that happened. That's a whole theme in the movie. Didn't think about that.
I'm going to watch this every year on New Year's Eve.
I have to.
Yeah, obligated.
they leave, but the kids call him for everything. First of all, the boy puts on a channel that is like a dancing girl in a bikini.
Yeah, it's like a stripper because there's a strip pole. She never gets naked, but it's very, you know, it's that kind of channel, the adult channel.
And the first thing I thought of is I yelled out, "Oh, that's from Dusk Till Dawn," the other Rodriguez directed Tarantino written movie. And I was like, because it looks like Salma Hayek, not that I know what her hips look like, but I was like, wow, that's got to be from that movie. But then I found out, no, it's not from the movie, but they refilmed that dance scene from that movie and just put it in with her. So she wants her brother to turn it off. The girl, who, by the way, at first we were like, oh, she's like the cute character, and I was like, no, she's gonna be like the mischievous one.
Yeah,
she kind of
she's
is
the mastermind of this.
She
doesn't take any shit from anyone.
No, so she is a little decent because she's like, she calls Ted and is like, tell my brother to turn this TV show off, and then he like doesn't care. So he's like, only call under emergencies. And then so like they keep calling throughout the night, and like things get crazier and crazier. She finds a needle in one of the drawers. And then she's like, there's a needle. So she calls Ted in both of our favorite shots of like a weird jump cut close into the numbers on the rotary phone.
It's so good. A little sidebar here. The sound design in this scene is great. It's very over the top. Like one point there's a slap, and it's like a heavy, just like, you know, cartoon thwack.
So she calls him, and he's like, you know, I'm too busy. He swears a lot to these kids. He's like, I have too much fucking things going on right now.
He's an asshole in this section.
At this point of the movie, he's been burnt.
He is done after the room 404 bit.
And then the girl calls room 404, and Siegfried answers. I forget exactly what their conversation was, but she's like, we have needles in our room. Do you have needles in your room?
In a very kid way, she just totally is unfazed by this scary guy talking to her on the phone because, you know, she's a kid.
It's funny. And then the kid puts like a target on the painting with the lipstick, and she throws in the target.
I think she does it. She's the one who draws the target, and he throws it before she moves. And it's like, she's, again, kind of like unfazed, just like, hey, you got to wait till I'm out of the way or something.
Then he comes to put him to bed. And he puts Vaseline over their eyes, or like the vapor rub, shit over their eyes.
So they don't open their eyes.
Yeah. Then it's New Year's Eve, and they want to see the fireworks, and they have to go to bed before midnight. So the fireworks start. The girl's like, this sucks. She gets up and washes the stuff off of her eyes. She can see the fireworks. Her brother gets up. He
slams in the door.
He walks right into the wall, right into the doorway.
It's great. It's really
comedy.
Funny.
They smell something, and then the girl looks under the bed and under the box
spring. They find the source of the stinky feet.
It's a dead
rotting corpse.
It's a dead whore.
Yeah.
He runs upstairs, and in this sequence of like fast paced, he's trying to beat the parents there in editing. It is what I will call my favorite shot of the movie, so I'll get it out of the way now. Where this really great close up, as there are many in the movie, of him putting the key in the door. But the way it's edited, it's so cartoonish, Three Stooges faster than it could ever be humanly possible.
The kid has the bottle. I think one of them has the bottle, and the son has one of his dad's cigarettes in his mouth, smoking it. It's set up like in the first bit of this where they're getting dressed up that he's interested in smoking.
And the funniest 5 seconds I've ever seen in a movie, Tim Roth slaps the kid. I think he slaps him in the face.
Yep.
He slaps the kid. The girl pulls the mattress off. As soon as he slaps this kid, he turns. He sees the dead girl.
Vomit erupts from his mouth.
I just played the scene.
What the fuck is that? Police! Get someone over here right fucking now! There's a dead whore!
Don't call her that!
Shut up!
He keeps calling the girl a whore, and it's
this little kid, badass feminist that she is.
Yeah. She gets very angry, so she takes the needle.
Stop calling her that!
Yeah, she takes the needle from earlier and just jams him in the leg with it. And then he's hopping around. Now we catch fire, because the alcohol is spilled at this point. The cigarette's on the ground.
And then Antonio Banderas walks in the room, and in the funniest bit to me, he looks around and he just says, "Did they misbehave?" And that's it.
Cut. That's it.
That's the best part of the movie. Just overall, the way it builds, the comedy, the acting, the editing. Robert Rodriguez, he's a great director. But I gotta say, I think my favorite single moment comes from the fourth one, which is directed by Quentin Tarantino. And let's get into that.
The Penthouse, The Man from Hollywood. This is written and directed by Quentin Tarantino.
And it starts out with this sort of a transition between the third one, the last vignette, and this one, where Ted, he is done. So he's calling up his coworker Betty.
Kathy Griffin, by the
That's
way,
right.
who is in Godzilla 1998. I hate that movie.
He calls Betty, and he doesn't get to Betty. He gets to some stoner girl at this New Year's party who it's just this great exchange, and the dialogue is very like Tarantino directed this transition as well, and it's very Tarantino, just very the way they talk, how it's very just like irrelevant but entertaining.
It's human.
Until he finally gets on with Betty, and he's like, I'm walking out the door, and Betty says, no, you got to answer this call. It's in the penthouse. It's our most important client. It's like Hollywood. We got to build up our reputation with Hollywood again.
This scene basically starts in some girls whose asses they're naked. They're running out of the room.
Streak out to the elevator.
I think Tarantino or Chester has kicked them out. I rewinded that. I'm going to cut that. Anyway, so Tim Roth walks in and he brings all these weird requested items to the room. And it's also important to mention, I believe that this room has been calling him for a while, but he'd been dealing with the kids. I think they set that up. But anyway, it's POV at first with Tim Roth talking and Quentin Tarantino talking. And I thought, oh, that's cool camera choice. And then the seconds and minutes are going by and I'm realizing they haven't cut. There's been not a single cut. It's like a play. You have Tarantino there talking to Tim Roth. He walks back to the rest of his room. He's got a friend there, the girl from earlier, the wife.
And fun fact, Bruce Willis is in this scene.
Yeah, Bruce Willis, Leo, is arguing with his wife in the background, which at first I was like, that's not Bruce Willis.
And I'm immediately like, this is Bruce Willis, because he's Bruce Willis. You can recognize him anywhere. At least I thought you could.
He's got like earrings and shit in this. That's not fair. When they start to get to like what they actually asked for, what the room requested, then we see some cuts. But the opening scene was great to me from just a technical camera standpoint. I mean, they just went and did it, and it was like a 3-4 minute just go. I believe Tarantino's friend in the movie, oh god, I don't remember his character's name, but he's talking to the girl who, by the way, is the same role-playing wife of Siegfried from Room 2. She's there. So she knows.
They met her at the pool, they say, in a passing comment.
She's talking to Tarantino's friend. Tarantino is talking to Tim Roth, and Leo, Bruce Willis, is arguing with his wife in the background. So there's a lot going on. It was very well coordinated. To the plot of this whole scene.
If Chester's friend can light his lighter 10 times in a row, which is the bet that's made in The Man from the South, then he will get Chester's car, which is this really nice Ferrari-type sports car crap. And if he can't, then he's going to lose his pinky finger, which also is part of the bet that's made in The Man from the South. They want Ted to be the one to cut off the finger because he's impartial, and they offer him $1,000 to do it. This is my favorite moment in the movie because it's the end of his character development. He just says in this great bit, it's a center shot. He just says, okay. He just agrees to do it.
And it also subverts the expectation of how the original story went. At least the Hitchcock one. I don't actually know what the Roald Dahl one would actually happen.
Same thing.
But in this one, it's first try, boom, cut.
And you know it's going to be the first try.
And it's all very fast, too. Like the cut, it's finger, grabs the money, he's gone.
And that's the end of the movie. He walks out with his money, straightens his tie, does his little funny walk out the door, and then the credits roll and they're scrambling, like find his finger and go to the hospital.
I get the feeling that some of it might have been improvised, but there's 2 times in the movie Tarantino makes his fictional company references. One of them is Red Apple Cigarettes during the beginning, after the witch scene, the honeymoon suite. And in this one, there's a Big Kahuna Burger, which is the burger joint from Pulp Fiction.
I didn't even see that.
It's on the steps.
I didn't see that. That's
where,
great.
Bruce Willis walks down. So chronologically, it's pretty much in order. Here's the only weird difference. So the events of the 404 room with the husband and wife happens in between, or during, I should say, the Misbehavers, because that takes place over watching the kids over the course of the night. So in between him running back to the kids' room and coming back to, the first floor, he actually goes into room 404. So when people from the party call for ice. So even though the Misbehavers starts before he gets the phone call to go to room 404, it also ends after that happens because it spans the whole night. But it's all in order because at the end of... But before he gets to the room 404 scene for that call for ice, he hangs up the little cherries he took from the topless girl that he hit the hay with.
I was sort of wondering where he got those from.
Those are in her hair.
Yeah, I missed that beat.
Yeah. But it's all pretty much chronological. I think the general thing I learned from this movie was collaboration. You have 4 different directors who they're not. I know Tarantino and Rodriguez aren't wildly different. They definitely have some crossover. They've done projects together before. But you have 4 different directors who took on the same character. So even though they all made very, even genre different short films, they all needed this the same character to have the same character development and journey throughout all of their stories. So in my opinion, there needed to be consistency, and I think that collaboration is what I learned from this.
Also, I guess pretty wide, but a little more specific for me was this is a really well-edited movie. There's a lot of great cuts. The way the story is told, especially in my favorite part, the Robert Rodriguez Misbehavers, or Misbehavin', whatever it's called, in the third vignette, the editing is really good, and it helps push the story along, and it helps make it not feel boring in some sections, like especially the first 2, which I didn't like as much. You were talking about that, like the close-up of the key going into the slot, the phone dialing. It's got some great editing in this movie, and that's kind of my big takeaway.
I think one way I would describe the editing even more specifically is they use it very, very well for the different scenes they need it for. In those scenes, when it's very cartoony and very hectic, the editing is very fast. It's almost like jump cuts, because he can't run the hallway that fast. He can't put the key in the door that fast or open it that fast. But they cut it that way because it's exaggerated. It's comedy. But in the witches scene, you don't need that kind of cutting, so they don't do it. And in Tarantino's scene, there's almost no cutting. So the editing is like put where it needs to be put.
Yeah, and you can really clearly see the style of each director in each of these vignettes.
Heart transition.
A fully enjoyable and very unique movie is kind of my final thoughts.
I would recommend watching the movie even after we told you about it. Actually,
yeah, basically given the entire thing.
You have to experience it. It's very weird. And that's kind of the point of the show. I didn't want this show to be about like, oh, we're going to watch the biggest movies ever made. I wanted to do some indie stuff, some underground stuff, some weird stuff.
We've got some even more
right.
underground indie stuff on our list.
And this movie is even considered bad by most people. It is a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I liked this movie because I thought it was wacky and it was cool and it did things that I hadn't seen movies done before.
I can see that 13% though, because it's a mixed bag. For me, I really didn't love that first section, but it's worth seeing. There's a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of kind of weird stuff. It's weird overall. That kind of wraps up my thoughts on it.
I think as an experimental, because that's kind of what it was. It was very experimental. Even for Tarantino's in his scene, that was experimental with the one shot POV kind of stuff. I think as an experiment and as a try, I enjoyed it from the filmmaking standpoint, and I definitely liked it, even if it's not the best thing I've ever seen.
Hello, welcome to Funny Notes, where my budget gets cut in half every episode. Next episode, I'm going to be out in the streets. Sick tight pants. Those women were wearing some tight-ass pants. Next funny note, big cherries. Side note, co-host is right now drinking a cherry vanilla Coke, so he's ingesting, that's the wrong way. Anyway, it's big cherries. Ginger girl gets off from boobies. Guzzler. What? Go back to baby. I forgot what I think. I think, just go back to baby. Dead whore, how do you cut that mattress? I thought that Quentin Tarantino looked a lot like Elon Musk. Last note, homo no.
Oh my god.
Homo? No. All those guys in the rich guy room who's Quentin Tarantino playing Quentin Tarantino. They also wanted to eat fingers, I think. That concludes Funny Notes. I would rip up this paper, but I can't. All right, time to get put out into the streets, guys.
And now,
yes,
we have a new thing.
Yeah.
So originally we had an order set up for what movies we were going to watch. We were alternating our picks, but we thought it would be more fun to draw from this mysterious black box.
We also didn't know how to order them because,
I bumped Super 8.
At first, we were doing movies that I picked and then movies that he'd picked, but then we ended up suggesting things to each other, and then it was like, what the hell are we doing? And we didn't know what to place things in terms of genre or how it would flow, so we decided, let's just pick
And while we do have 2 movies in our list that we absolutely will do, and we won't spoil which ones those are, we thought it'd be more fun to just draw them randomly.
Yeah.
Makes it more interesting for the viewers, for us, for Super 8 here, who is the real star of the show. Drum roll, everyone!
All right, since I shuffled it, you can pick.
Okay.
You can't look, though.
Second drum roll, everyone. And for next week, we will be doing Mulholland Drive by David Lynch.
Cool, I'm excited.
I'm very excited for this because my film teacher in high school had a big poster of this on his wall, and I was very intrigued by it because David Lynch has done some really cool stuff if you've seen Twin Peaks.
Cool.
Or Eraserhead, which is so weird.
We'll see you next week for Mulholland Drive. Thanks for coming back to the show. Bye.
Bye.